Working title version 0.7.0. Let's get into it. So first things first, probably the biggest change is the addition of the course needles, as well as some changes on how the maps actually work, or the format modes. So let's go ahead and look at that now. So PFD menu, so there's three formats in the PFD. Rows and arc are noted by this little stick airplane icon right here. So in this mode, you only will see the course needles. You will not see an overlay of the course. You don't see your waypoints or anything like that. You only see the course needle. You could overlay your weather and terrain and traffic once that is up there, but you won't see any waypoints in those positions. The present position, however, is the only, actually there's two, but the present position is the only selection you can put on the PFD to show your waypoints en route. On the map, on the MFD, you can use the present position and also the plan mode, which will also show you your waypoints. But for here, oops, let me just go ahead and use this. So now we've got the arc mode right here with a little airplane icon, the rows mode with the little stick figure airplane icon, and then the present position, which has the outline of the airplane, or it's kind of filled in. So that's how you can tell the difference at a glance. So let's go to the arc mode, and we'll go ahead and show you the FMS course needle. So right now we don't have anything in there. This should actually say no flight plan right there, but we haven't really gotten it in yet. But so let's go ahead and throw in a quick flight plan, so you can see the needle will pop up. Let's go to Philly, Boston. It's just my debugging things here. All right, so now the course needle is popped up. So you can see the course is actually behind us. If we went to the format here, you can see the course is actually 063, so it's behind us. And this little arrow here is pointing to the direction we need to go. So let's just go ahead and throw in a departure runway. Philly to departure, we're off 27 left. Go ahead and execute. Now it's thrown in this user waypoint, which is pretty much right off the runway here. So that is our course needle there. So it's really nice to have. You can finally see where you're going instead of having to just follow this little route. So that should be pretty good, useful. We also have the, let's see, 109.3. We now have an ILS needle, so this will be very useful. There's no flags for this one, it just points to the course. Unfortunately, you can't set these yet. In real life, you would be able to set it. We also could do VORs. It's not going to get that one. There we go. So now with the VORs, you've got the needle. You can set it with the course, and the course knob also allows you to set VOR 1 and 2 if you need to. In real life, you can only set VOR 1 with this side and course 2 with the VOR 2, but for the sim's sake, we just set them both up here. But so as you can see, we've got the deviation needle and the arrow right here. The to from flag is pointing in the direction of the VOR. If we were to spin this around, now the to from flag will flip, indicating we want to fly a course of 135, but the VOR would be behind us in that case. So now you can do VOR approaches, so have fun with those. We have also the ability to track a VOR course. So this works pretty good. Actually, it kind of fishtails a little bit, but that's kind of a pilot limitation. We can't really do much with that. But now it'll actually fly a VOR needle course, so that'll be pretty cool. The memory buttons that we have set up here will now be persistent between your flights. You don't have to set it up every single time, which is handy. We also have the localizer ghost needle, which is what you'd see on the FMS page. So when you're flying, on a normal route, coming in for an ILS or something like that, you're going to have the ILS tuned in there. And when you get about 20 to 30 miles away, when you're in FMS mode here, the ghost needle is going to pop up, and it's going to be tuned into the inbound course for the approach. So it's basically going to show you just a general idea of where you got to go. So it's nice and handy if you want to do intercepts for yourself. If the ATC is kind of weird, you do a heading intercept, you can actually see where it's at. It makes it real nice and easy. And you can see when the needle is coming in. But we'll go ahead and play this video now that I did earlier on localizer ghost needles. Check it out. Alright, just a quick video on how the new needles and the localizer ghost needle work. So in this case, we're doing the ILS to 17, and we're flying directly to COWAD right now. As you can see, our course we're right on. and we have the localizer tuned in, and it's showing up here as the ghost needle. So as we start getting a little bit closer, this is going to start moving in once we get in line with the localizer. And in the real airplane, you would, as soon as you would see this needle move, you would go ahead and press approach up here, and the aircraft will automatically switch from the nav to the ILS, and it'll go to the green needles. But we don't have that quite set up right now, a little bit more involved. But once you get on course, you can go ahead and change it to nav and then press approach, and everything will be alright. So let's go ahead and show that shortly. Zoom in a little bit. About to start the turn, so this course needle should be in line with the localizer once it flies to hill. Should sequence shortly. There we go. Pretty close, actually. I don't think that deviation is quite right. There's some weird things with how they're drawing these courses and all that, but alright, so you see the localizer start coming in now. We should be just lined up with it. Beautiful. Alright, looks good. And if we click to nav, now there's our ILS needle. Now should be, couldn't click approach. Alright, now it's got capture the loc needle. So, there you go. That's localizer ghost needles. We're going to get the functionality, the real functionality, a little bit later, but that's just a little preview. And I think you'll enjoy these needles. They are so much better. Alright, we also have, let's go ahead and go to this page here. So if we go ahead and go to the index page, page 2, we have our mod settings right here. If we go ahead and do that, we've got some other options here. We have a ground power unit, which is now you can turn it on and off when you're sitting on the ramp. This feature is not persistent, so you have to turn it. You'll have to turn it on every time if you need to, so you don't drain your battery when you mess around with the FMS and avionics. But you also don't need to turn it off. The sim will just turn it off automatically for you when you taxi away. You won't be dragging the GPU card around the ramp. That's happened in real life before. But we've also have the hide yoke function. This is persistent. So if you hate having to click these yokes every time you start up the flight, just go ahead and click that button and you will never see them again, which is very handy. We also have setup for metric units. So if you notice here, it's for the FMS and MFD. So if you go ahead and click on metric, so you can see it's going to change our fuel to kilograms an hour. And then if we were to go to, let's see here, let's just put in a database here. It's also going to show runway lengths in meters. That's actually not the correct value. I don't know. It's just kind of bugged out. But runway lengths in meters. And then if you go to the takeoff page, you'll have the Q and H in hectopascals. So I think a lot of guys will enjoy that one. Oh yeah, there we go. Meters. That one looks better there. I don't know why the other one was so different. We also have the the range to altitude select, which is the range banana. I know a lot of you guys have been wanting that feature. It's finally in. So to get to that, it's only available on the present position page. The reason it's only available there is because it's the only one that really shows your waypoints and that you're moving. Let me just go ahead and do this real quick. Okay, it's not going to show it on the ground because it's not doing anything. However, if you were to go to the display menu while you're in the present position mode, and this will show up either on the MFD and also on the PFD. But if you were to go to display menu, page 2, you'll see range to altitude select. And this is also a persistent setting. And we'll change these to persistent as well once we get the rest of them in there. So if you leave it on, it's always going to be on. Even when you restart the airplane, close the sim, come back, it'll always be on. So you can turn that on and off, and I'll do a little demo of that right here. Alright, so I think a lot of guys will enjoy that one. We've fixed some issues with the sim brief thing failing on seems a random failure on airway loads, so we've fixed some issues with that. However, there still might be some out there, definitely with like database issues, things like that. We've handled the scratchpad errors, so sometimes if you put in a wrong input and an error message comes up, it deletes what you had in the scratchpad. So we've kind of changed that around and make it a little bit more realistic. When you set an origin airport, such as you put Philly back in here, it should properly clear out your flight plan. We were having some issues with that before. In fact, there's still some work to be done on that because you can still see it's still showing a track right here. But we'll work on that later because we've got some flight plan manager, some new features coming up in the future. I think you're gonna like, but you'll see about that in a little bit. So also setting a destination in here should clear all the procedures. You also get if you're in flight and you're trying to change the origin airport, you're going to get a message saying you're not on the ground because you can't change that in flight in the real thing. And also inputting an invalid fix in your route won't completely clear out your temporary flight plan as you're typing in your fixes and stuff like that, so that would be kind of annoying. We've also added the ability to change this number here because normally it comes straight from the PFD, but now you can also set your own unit in there. Because I don't think this thing actually sets... Yeah, so this would normally update, but we don't have an update refresh in there. Because generally you only go to this page once. We don't see a reason to waste resources on having this refresh to detect if you've changed the pressure here. But you see I went to 2996 and went back in again, it's going to pull that number. So it's just something you would set and then go into that. But you can also change it if you wanted to. The pages should also no longer crash. A lot of guys are getting crashes in here. It would just go blank because they didn't have a runway selected in here. This is actually not the place where you put it in. This is just showing you what you have loaded in. You have to set a runway in here. For example, 9 right. So before, people were going to page 2. It was crashing, just getting a black page because they didn't have any runway loaded in. But this is also not giving any V-speeds or takeoff length because I don't have a temperature in there. Which is, if you see these boxes, it means you got to fill them in. So if we want to get for 15 in there, winds are calm. Now it's going to give us our V-speeds. So that's cool. We fixed an issue on the fuel management page where it was getting stuck in some update loop, which is very annoying. You couldn't see, it would constantly go back to one of these pages, which is very annoying. We've overhauled the waypoint disambiguation page to reflect what the real unit would show. So I think I can give an example of that. Yeah, so now it's going to kind of space it out a little bit. It's going to show you the VOR if it's an airport, and also the region. So K7, actually have to look up what these are. I guess this one's the US, but it'll actually show now. This is pretty much exactly how the real unit shows it. So this should be a lot easier to select the one you're looking for. Also, another page I wanted to show, which this has been in for the past couple patches, and I kind of forgot to showcase before, and it's a really cool feature. Is the frequency page. So if you have a flight plan loaded there and you go to the frequency page, it's going to show you all the frequencies for the airport. In fact, approach frequency, it's going to list them all there. You can go to page 2. ATIS, you can pull those up, and if you click any one of these, it's going to throw it in the scratch pad, and you can go ahead and drop it into the tune page wherever you want. So super handy to have. And I think a lot of people don't know about it. It also is going to show you all the ILS frequencies for all the runways. And you could also throw in your own airport. I think it's on this side. Let's see. Made to work on that one a little bit. Oh, there we go. So now it's in here, so you can bring up an airport of your own to check all the frequencies. So really cool feature. Check that one out. Let's see. You can also just multiple I was just talking about when you have the fix in there and it brings up multiple things here. You can also you can select multiple pages to actually select the one you want. So, and we also have the waypoint selected list. So the first one in the list will be the closest one to you. So 99 times out of 100, that's the fix you're going for, because sometimes you put in a fix that's 10 miles away, but it shows the one that's in Russia 16,000 miles away or whatever that's supposed to be. So that should be a lot easier to fix those now. You're not going to be confused in which one to select. You don't have to like look at the decipher the coordinates to figure out what it can be. So also in the mod setting page, the cabin lights are now set to the battery. So when you turn the battery off, your cabin lights will go off as well. We also bring the flashlight back. A lot of guys are wanting about that one. It got kind of screwed up in some of the lighting configs, so we brought the flashlight back. The cabin lights will also save, will be persistent as well. You can clear your sim brief ID, which is right here. So you can go and clear that out if you need to. Let's see. So when you click departure arrival, so we've introduced some logic with the departure arrival page. So when you're within 50 miles of the departure airport, when you click depart arrive, it's going to bring you to the departure select page. So the reason for this is if you had some sort of issue in flight just after departure, if you click that, it's going to bring you back to the departures here to select an arrival runway again. So there's no fussing around with any of that. And the same logic applies when you're within, I think, 50 miles of the arrival airport. If you were to click that, it's going to bring up the arrival page instead of having to click this and go into the index and then having to click it again. So a little bit more realistic to how the real unit works. So there's been some issues. It no longer miscalculates the number of total pages for the selections there, and the available approach runways for the selected arrivals should match correctly, because I know there was a couple of issues before with